Hello. Well, I'm glad to be here in Chile, and I thank you very much for the invitation. My program, which I was preparing for this conference, I changed it a little bit, because at first I was going to show some attacks on the memory of a virtual system, but there's a very new thing which was found this year in the United States, and it's called zero freeze. So you can preserve a computer's memory for a very long time, even when the system was turned off. So my presentation will be about this stuff as well as virtual machine attacks. Okay? So preserve digital life with eyes. That's a subline, and it's quite possible. The memory of the system is the last bastion, the last fortress of plain text. Everything which is stored in the memory is readable by everyone. Yeah? So the memory is never, by itself, it's never encrypted. Yeah? But for other channels of communication or storage, for example, hard disks or network communications, you could encrypt these communications. We all know these encryptions like SSL for web servers, yeah? Or TrueCrypt for storage devices of our hard disks, or BitLocker, for example. Yeah? For smartphones, we also have some encryption, but it's very bad at the moment. Yeah? So it's very easy to crack, very cheap, especially on the iPhones. Yeah? But the memory is not encrypted. So everything which is in the memory of a system is basically in clear text. If the software don't take part and don't encrypt these informations, everyone who can access a system's memory can access these informations. So what are the reasons? Why is the memory not encrypted? The first reason is performance. When we are going to encrypt the memory of a system, the system is getting very, very slow. So even the fastest computer would turn to a electronic typewriter when you encrypt everything which is written or read from the memory. And even a modern system has a problem with this encryption stuff, because there's no equipment to encrypt or decrypt the memory at the speed required by the CPU. So maybe in the future, or maybe someone found some way in the past, there could be very super fast FPGAs which could be used to encrypt the data stream from the North Bridge, from the CPU to the system's memory. But for the moment there's no such technology. At least no technology which is public known. In the past, there were some solutions, special solutions about the memory. We had failover memory banks for very high-end servers. So if a memory bank died, the system switched over to another memory bank, but this required 2 North bridges. Also, we know memory failover modules like parity checks for small error detections, or ECC checks for better 1 or 2-bit error corrections in the memory. Yeah? But no encryption stuff. So who could steal your computer's memory? You may think nobody can, because if someone is trying to steal it and you turn off the computer, all the information in the memory is gone, right? The RAM is removed, it's deleted in a couple of seconds. Is this right? There will be no information after maybe 2 minutes. Everything which was in the RAM of your system is gone. That's true. The content of a memory chip is lost when the power is turned off, but it will take some seconds for the systems to lose this information. Yeah? If you use this time, a couple of seconds, and zero freeze the memory of a system, you can do this with a public available air spray. You can apply it on the computer memory chips and cool them down very, very quickly. Yeah? And the process is called zero freeze. It's very similar with humans. Some guys are paying a lot of cash to get zero freezed after their death, because they're hoping someday in the future they can be received with the memory. And it's very similar with the computer. It's working in the same way. For example, if someone is drinking in a very cold lake and he's dying, and you receive him in maybe 1 or 2 hours, you can bring him back to life. If somebody is drinking in a hot lake or in a warm lake, you cannot bring him back after 5 minutes. He's lost because his brain is dead. It's empty. But in ice water, his informations in his brain will survive much longer. And the same is true for a computer. So the answer is yes, you can freeze the memory chips of a computer to preserve this information. When the system is turned off, there are many ways to freeze it. You can smash it open, for example, and apply some kind of liquid air spray, or you can take the whole system and put it in liquid air solutions. The system will be damaged. The system is dead, basically, after this, but the memory chips, which are the brain of the computer, are still alive. So you can receive them and access this information on the memory chip. A critical point is you have to cool down the memory chips to about minus 80 degrees of Celsius. And when you do so, the information in the chips will stay there for a couple of hours. So it's maybe 4 hours, 6 hours. Depends on the memory chip, and it's all about the electron activity and the capacity. The lower the temperature is, the easier the electrons can move. The less resistance is in their movement. So the information stay longer in the chips and the capacitors. Yeah? When you bring them to even lower temperatures, you can store this information even longer, maybe a day or 2. And when you bring them to the absolute 0 degree point, 1 grade Kelvin, I think it's called, you can save this information forever, basically, in the chip. So a computer chip with information in the space would keep this information on it forever. Almost forever. The way is, how can you attack a frozen system? You have to remove these frozen chips from a system and take it out and insert them into another system. But you have to be careful because it can cost your finger. Yeah? It's very cold and the freeze is very hurtful. When you insert them in another system, you boot a special forensic operating system. A system like this is defined by using very few memory, doing very few damage to the memory of the chips. So you can basically access all this information on the chips with such a system. And 2 common tools who are used for this analysis are RAM to USB, for example, or MSRAM dump. Yeah? These tools have very little impact on the memory. So when you start them with a special OS, there will be no much damage to the RAM, because we won't damage the RAM because we're after the information in the memory. Yeah? So what could you steal from the memory of a computer? Basically anything. The guys who found out the Syro-free stuff steal some good things. For example, the keys from BitLocker, from FileVault, which is from Apple, or from dmcrypt, which is for Linux. So if you have access to the memory and you can get these keys, you basically could retrieve all information on the hard disk of such a system. Yeah? And attacks on this stuff were as long believed as impossible. The systems were considered to be safe, but they are not. Even if you turn off your computer, if some guy who has interest in your computer can freeze the memory, they can engineer on the memory and find out these keys. But there are many other things we can steal. Or what do you think? Can we steal, for example, we take a Linux operating system, yeah, which is considered as very safe. So raise your hand when you are a Linux operating system. So you're all using Windows? Yeah? No Linux? Yeah, okay, a couple. Well, I have bad news for you Linux guys, yeah? because Linux is very bad in the security about the memory stuff. So I can show you on a demonstration what you can steal from a Linux system. I used a Red Hat Enterprise Linux system for this attack, and we can do many very interesting things on it. The common saying, Linux is safer than Windows, which is basically absolute wrong. Windows handles information in the memory way better than Linux at the moment, but I will show you this on a demonstration on an attack on a virtual machine, because I'm using a virtual machine because I have access to the memory of this virtual system. And I can show you some practical hacks here. And it's a clean environment, so we don't have to freeze something and lose some fingers or so. We just can do it on a VMware environment. What I use for the setup is VMware Workstation in some latest 7th version. I don't know exactly which it is, but it's one of the latest. I use CentOS in the version 5.6. I think 5.7 is out now, but it doesn't matter because this thing is not patched. It will not be patched even in CentOS 6 or probably even not in CentOS 7, so we don't care about the version. So the reason why I use Windows 7, for example, as an operating system is the vulnerabilities on the Linux systems I will show you. Experiment 1 is reboot an CentOS operating system. We didn't log in any user. I will start it on a virtual machine right now and try to move it to your screen. Here we go. And we use the CentOS target here. Boot it up. It will take a couple of seconds, maybe half a minute. So it's starting up. Still booting, waiting for the drivers. Activating SE Linux, which is very good for security. So we almost done. Send mail and it's up. So the system just started, and what informations we could find in the memory. It just booted, so is there any information about usernames or password in the memory? We didn't log in yet, it's just freshly booted. Probably not, but there is. When you use this command, the command strings, and attach the virtual memory, and grab for this sequence, which is the beginning of the Linux root, and it's a syntax for the file etc passwd. You could probably find something, and we will try. It's freshly booted. No user is logged in yet. Will take a bit of time because it's 250 megabytes of RAM. But here we go. What we find here is an entry of the file etc passwd. It was loaded when the system were booted. Yeah? So basically we could use this information here and try to attack the root password. We will go for it. Well, here it's German. I will mark this line here. Check, marked. And use a special tool which is called Password Pro. It's from Russia. Yeah? It's a very fast password cracker. And I will add, it's very bad readable. I'm sorry about this. I will add the string here, root with the MD5 Unix hash, MD5 Unix hash. I will add it and start a crack on it. For this example, I used a very easy password, but you can also attack it by using rainbow tables or stronger brute force attacks, like Kurt showed. You can use Amazon clusters to brute force such passwords. And here we go. We found a password which is called bastión22. Okay, so this was a very simple password, but when we have access to the memory of a system, what would happen when the superuser root logs in? Could we access the password under Linux in clear text on this memory? What do you think, yes or no? No. It's not in the memory when the superuser root logs in? Well, basically it is in the memory. It's a chance of about 80% that you can get it by this simple comments like strings and grep. Yeah? So I prepared it. I have to switch it because I have to find the command. So basically, we log in. Root, and the password was bastión22. I will give it 2 tries. I will try it first on the real memory, which is 56 Wittman. And we'll grab for something special. I'm looking for a string combination which looks like this. In the first line, I need this signature here. In the second line, I need the name root. In the third line, I will get the password which the superuser root entered in clear text, in plain text. Yeah? Okay. So we will first attack the real memory. It's a chance of a few percent we can get it out, the memory. It will take maybe 20 or 30 seconds because of the size of the memory. We find some entries. And we find some more entries. And also there's a hash in it. But there's no clear text password in it. Yeah? As I said, it's a game because I'm just using strings and grep, so I can compare only a few lines. The password is there in the memory in the clear text, and I can show it to you by another command maybe. I have to switch it over because I cannot read it. We already know the password, which is bastión22. Access to the memory of a